Yo, what is up, everybody? We are back with another Sunday morning stream. We had a few games on Thursday for Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope you spent some time with the family or found some other way to enjoy your day. Um, but that means we have a couple less games to talk about for today. There are some updates that will have some pretty strong fantasy implications, so we'll touch on those. Some injury status updates. We'll be talking about I don't know, some things that I think, some situations that we might throw some projections out on how we see it playing out. But anyway, I guess let's just get into it. We've got some good news here that we've both been waiting on. We got Kareem Hunt returns this week. That's very exciting. I see that he's projected for a whole like 8 points on ESPN fantasy, but they've been underrating him all year. So, what do you see Kareem Hunt doing today?
Yeah, it's first of all, yes, I'm obviously very excited that he's back. Been waiting on him for a while. But the way I see this today, I think if you have Kareem Hunt, you're gonna play him, but you might have to limit expectations a little bit. Mainly because I read a report earlier today that said something about like yes, he's likely to be active and he's gonna play, but that is his touches might be a little bit limited in this first game back. They were just kind of put him out there on third downs and then see how he feels. But at the same time, I also could see a world where, like, if he does get those opportunities early on in the game and feels good and doesn't feel like he's hindered at all, and it's a close game, like I expect this game to be like a tough played game against Baltimore tonight. Then I could actually see him staying more involved throughout the game, assuming his health is right, and that's just the part we don't know. But I can tell you this much: I'm putting him in my lineup today, and just gonna, just hope that he's involved enough that he doesn't disappoint you for fantasy, just because of the potential upside. I mean, wasn't this guy top 12 or top 15 running back before he got hurt?
Oh
I'd have
yeah,
to look, but I know he was up there, close to RB1 status. I just don't know how. He's been out this much time. If they wanted to, they could have waited another week. Cleveland could have, but they chose to bring him back tonight. So I think he's going to play, and I think you should put him in your lineup.
agreed. Agreed. I agree with all that. Like you're probably not going to see the big game, but he's definitely worth putting out there. He started out a little bit slower early, and I think that supported where he was going in the drafts, which we both thought was a little low. And then it was like Chubb got a little banged up, and Hunt just started really kind of taking over some of the opportunities that Chubb was leaving for him. And it was
Yeah.
looking really good before he got hurt. So I'm running him out there.
We got a question from Jared. It said, should I start Harris or Stevenson? If I'm picking between the two, I'm probably going to play Damian Harris this particular week, just because it seemed like the reports were a little bit better about Harris than they were Stevenson. Obviously, you're going to have to pay attention right before game time because if one of them is not in, obviously you're not playing that guy, and it's just going to give you more confidence for the other. If they're both active, it's unfortunate that they're both probably going to they're both going to eat into each other's work a little bit. But this week I'll play Damian Harris.
Just got an update here. Looks like Cordell Patterson is expected to play. He was being described as a true game time decision. So um, I guess that can be our next one. Cordell Patterson's been really good for fantasy. He's missed a couple weeks, I want to say, um,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
that's
sounds
big.
like he's gonna play now. I think if he is playing, you run him out there as normal, right?
100%. Just like what we were saying about Kareem Hunt, it's that, but even more for Cordell Patterson. Like how good he's been this season. If he's active, you're playing him. There's just no doubt about it. I was gonna say with Kareem when we were talking about him real quick though was like we play in a three wide receiver league, but there's plenty of leagues out there where it's just two wide receivers and you're flexed. And if you've went this long without Kareem Hunt and you've been winning, that probably means you have another solid option for your flex, whether it be a third wide receiver or third running back. And I think if you have like a really good, really safe option that you really like too, I think in that case you could play that other person and wait a week on Kareem Hunt. Like I don't think that would be crazy to do, but I think if you're not in that position and you're looking at like some of these wide receiver four territories in your flex or some of these other running backs like the Deontay Foremans of the world, then it's not even a question you're playing Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, Yeah, I'd agree with that. Dante Foreman, somebody that's on the list too. They're saying he's expected to get the bulk of the carries. Jeremy McNichols is out again with a concussion, and they have a young gun that they signed from their practice squad, and they liked enough of what they saw apparently to cut ties with Adrian Peterson. So, Dontrell Hilliard is his name, and he seemed to
Yeah.
be somebody that they're okay with offering a little bit on both aspects of the running back position. It looks like he was running the ball and catching the ball a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking Dante Foreman's probably the guy to run out there this week. But I'm kind of wondering how this shapes up when McNichols comes back, if Hilliard disappears. I was talking to you about it a little bit before the
Mhm.
stream, and like rest of season value, I'm a little more intrigued with the guy that can do both, thinking that maybe they don't want to be too predictable and he may have a little more opportunity. But really, this is going to be a tough situation to predict, and I think we just have to kind of wait and see what this looks like going forward. What do you think about the Titans' backfield right now, or for going forward?
It's like what you said. It's you we expect it to be Foreman, and I think if you had to play one this week, you're playing Foreman. And then I think it's pretty clear that like this week, Dontrell Hilliard would be the guy that would be the third down, 2 minute drill, pass catching back. Like that is his style. That's what the Titans did with him this past week. A lot of his catches last week did come, and it was like right before halftime. The defense was playing super soft or playing way back because there wasn't much time on the clock. And I think Hilliard got 3 to 5 catches on that one drive. Just a lot of dump offs because it's what was there. So I think his numbers are a little skewed from last week on the 10 targets. But it's not like that game script couldn't happen again. It's not like it's not like the Titans couldn't be down again, especially now without AJ Brown and already missing the other guys. So maybe game script is in Hilliard's favor. But yeah, when McNichols comes back, that just makes it so much more confusing because he also would catch passes out of the backfield. So I think ultimately we're going to get to a place where none of these guys emerge. That would be my best guess. But Foreman would have to be the most likely, just because I think the way he's looked, I think he's looked like the most true decent running back as far as just running the ball. And maybe he gets the goal line stuff, and that's the goal line carries, and that's the most valuable out of everything. So
Well, and we have AJ Brown heading to the IR too. So like, if I mean, in a different world where like AJ Brown and Julio Jones are both healthy, I don't know that I'm as interested in any of these guys because it's seems to be so convoluted. But
yeah.
like, because AJ Brown's out and Julio's out, like I feel like one of these guys has got to be bringing some juice for fantasy lineups, and that's where a lot of my intrigue's coming from.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, if that's true, then in that situation, I would think it would not be Foreman. I would think it would be one of either McNichols or Hilliard, just because I think they could get their work done in the passing game.
Absorb. Oh,
But
you're
it's
saying like absorbing some of the targets that might be
the
available.
targets, right?
Makes sense.
Right.
We've got Saquon's expected to play. I think I want to say I read somewhere where this is something that he could be managing for the rest of the year, though. So it looks like we're going to be fading our expectations on him a little bit, which is a bummer. It seems like there's been something every week since like what week 2 or 3 that's been hampering him. I don't know. Is this who Saquon Barkley is now? Like I think it might be official.
It might, it might be, man. It's kind of hard to deny at this point.
It's just always something.
So, so what was Ian Rappaport's last thing about him? He's expected to play, officially questionable, but expected to play. He played 62% of the Giants snaps last week. Um, it also feels like you're going to need more than that percentage of snaps too from him in order to be happy with your fantasy day. It's not like the explosive plays have been there every week that he's played. You're going to play him. Obviously, you're going to play him, but and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, how many better options are you really going to have than Saquon? Probably not too many on your roster, just based on way drafts went and everything else. Um, but it's the same worry I had about Saquon, like a lot of people did just coming into the year. Like this exact thing, his health. It's always been his problem, not his talent. Sucks. What are you gonna do?
Is what it is. You're probably in that position where you're feeling like,
That dude looks so man. You remember him his rookie year?
oh
God,
yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, he really was. He really was gonna be that next dude in the NFL for a long time, but just can't. I don't know. His body just can't do it. I don't get it.
I mean, I
The way
feel
he's
like some
built.
of it up until this point, I don't know that that's as true this year, but I think some of it up to this point is the team he's been on too. Like there are some good players that take take bad hits or have a harder time staying healthy because of where they're at, unfortunately. And I think he might be an example of that. I mean, he was getting what 30 or more touches a game when they got him because he was all they had, and now here we are.
I know with a terrible offensive line.
And
Whatever. That's the Giants. Did you see that? Did you see that? What's his name? Is it? It's not Gettleman. Is it Gettleman?
the
Right.
GM,
Their GM. Yeah.
yeah,
So they fired Jason Garrett, and now it sounds like he's done after the season as well. Giants are just looking for an overhaul.
yeah. And really, I don't think the GM was doing all that bad. If listen, like the Giants aren't a great team, but like they added some good pieces on defense at like that were kind of budget players that had some upside that I think have panned out for them overall. And they brought in Devonta Booker and they brought in Kenny Galladay. I do think Galladay was a bad fit. I still stand by that 100%. But they went
Yeah.
and got a receiver, and it was one of the higher profile receivers out there. It's not really his fault that. I mean, he should have identified, I guess, maybe that wasn't a good fit for his quarterback. But like, also you were kind of at a point where you might not be full commit to Daniel Jones too, right? And if you're gonna go sign somebody like Galladay for what was it, 4 years I think it was, like in his mind somewhere he was probably wondering like, is Daniel Jones even going to be our quarterback through the duration of this contract? So, I mean, I don't hold that against him too much. I don't think he did that bad of a job. I think he brought in some pieces where they needed it that were good, not great, and I don't know. It just feels like that's just one of those teams that has a hard time getting over the hump.
Yeah, like one of those franchises that just doesn't know how to win anymore.
Yeah. Hashtag Lions.
Oof. Oof. Another tough one on Thanksgiving. Look, I'm a Bears fan. Nobody won that game. Okay. Nobody won in that game. We got another. We mentioned AJ Brown, right?
Yeah.
I guess sort of in passing with the Titans. That's a real bummer.
It really is. He had like his two best games of the year right before his issues started. He had just come back from being banged up.
Right. Yeah, and he was kind of. This was kind of the situation with him last year too. I mean, when he was active and playing, like he was balling, but he was banged up a lot last year too. He's just such a physical player. You know, you'd think that probably like his style of play is probably part of it. Um, so he's on what? He's on IR, and that means that we're basically it's a 3-week situation for him at minimum. That's a bummer. But moving on to another Brown, Hollywood Brown. He's back. Sounds like he's gonna be back, and you're playing him 100%, right?
Yeah, he was too good before he got hurt. I think you are running him out there. I'm a little bit concerned because Speed's a I mean, he's rounded out pretty nicely this year as a receiver, but Speed is still like at least offering you a lot of upside with him, and it is a leg injury. He's got a thigh, and it doesn't seem like that's gone. But he had been so good, and he has um, diversified, I guess, his opportunities with his route tree and his development. So I'm running him out there if I have him, unless I'm just loaded at receiver. But I think I do slight him just a little bit because of the leg injury.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that. I mean, Lamar Jackson's back too. I think, like you said, you're definitely gonna play him. He's been way too good this year as well. People probably do have some nice options because he was drafted so late this year, but that dude's been in everybody's starting lineup for weeks now. Firemouth. I assume you mean I don't know if you did that to be funny or not. That is funny, but I assume you mean Firemouth. Fryermuth. Now he's got me confused on how to say his name.
Well, Tony
Or
Jones
Tony Jones.
Tony Jones played on Thursday, so that's already locked in.
Right.
Saints played on Thursday, so you wouldn't be able to move him. But Eric Ebron, I think, also hit the IR too. So I do
Did.
give a bump to Fryermuth. If there is somebody that you're debating on and it's pretty close, I would bump Fryermuth up a little bit because Ebron hasn't been a dude, but he has been taking away a little bit the last 3-4 weeks. I mean, he has been getting a few looks, and um, I mean, I would assume that those all end up going to Fryermuth.
Yeah, I would think so too. And that is absolutely who I would be playing. Even if you could play Tony Jones, I probably wouldn't. And I mean, speaking of that situation, real quick, it sounds like Kamara is still not like he's still a big question mark for next week as well. And I don't know what's going on with Mark Ingram. So like Tony Jones would be a hold, but Mark Ingram might be really fantasy relevant again next week. Wow, I'm tripping up. Oh, good man.
Sounds like a good start to your Sunday.
That's right. It sounds like I need to get on your level.
Yeah, that situation kind of played out all at once. I don't know, I wasn't really maybe paying as much attention, but it seemed like the Ingram thing came out kind of last minute, and then it was like, okay, well, we've got Tony Jones, and he might actually serve a purpose this week. So if Kamara's looking questionable, even for next week already, that's not a good sign. So yeah, holding on
Right.
to Tony Jones is a good idea.
Yep. Agreed.
Another
Well, who's
injury
next?
that could be managed going forward, pretty alarming. But I guess we won't know how it plays out exactly. But Stafford's got elbow pain and a back issue, they're saying. And he had a back issue a couple years ago that they decided they were gonna just call it a season for him. They were gonna rest him, hoping that he'd be ready for the next year. So this is Stafford's second back injury. His play has tapered the last few weeks too. So I don't know how long it's been going on. He's a guy that does try to play through some of that stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if this started maybe a few weeks or a month ago, and he's been managing it the best he can. But that's an issue, especially for this week. I think I'm actually going to be hard fading the Rams offense this week as far as the passing game goes, partially because of that, but also partially because they're in Green Bay. It is late in the year and the weather's not really too great right now. Stafford hasn't been somebody that plays well in those conditions in the first place. They also are playing in a dome in LA, so just the dramatic change in weather from where they're coming from. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really worried about Rams options this week in Green Bay, and then the Stafford injury, we'll have to just pay attention to and kind of monitor going forward. But this could be a big deal, right?
It is. It's concerning, but I don't know that there's much you can do about it right now other than just pay closer attention to Rams offense if you have any of these guys. Because I'm trying to think of like what you can do with this information. And as far as like this particular week goes, I will say what Stafford has in his favor is he's played at Lambeau a lot late in the year. So at least maybe the team and a lot of the players on that team, but aren't as familiar, or not even necessarily not as familiar, but just maybe they're not as what's the word I'm looking for, like conditioned for this type of game. But I think Stafford's probably so used to this at this point, right? Like he's not going to go in there and be caught by surprise by anything playing at Lambeau this type of year. But the injury itself concerns me to the point where when you take that with the lack of his production lately, to where I would want to wait on guys like OBJ, but yet you have to play people like you have to play Cooper. Like you're not going to sit Cooper Kupp. He's been unbelievable for most of the season. You're not going to sit him and miss out on a 100-yard touchdown game. You can't do that. That potential. And Darrell Henderson, like he's probably, if anybody has him, he's probably been their RB2 all this year, and you're gonna play him and not think about it either. But if we have another week of the Rams offense looking like it has, like lately, then we're probably going to get more reports about Stafford's health like we did this week. We're probably going to get even more information about that, and it is going to start to get really concerning. But what can you really do about it? You're not going to go try to trade Cooper Kupp. I mean, I guess you could if you want to go that route, like if you're actually that concerned with it. But I'm not there yet. I guess this is just more of like, okay, I'm gonna pay more attention now to what's going on.
With it being late in the year and with the trade deadline approaching for a lot of leagues, I'm sure. I think ours is set later than most. I do think
I'd
in
have to look.
redraft leagues, like if you look at the Rams offense this week and it looks rough, I do think there's a reason to start wondering. I think it's worth thinking about trading a cup for somebody else that's really good. But like if you were to trade a cup for like a Debo Samuel right now in a redraft league, like say the Rams just go out and they don't look good, they look really flat, like Stafford just looks off. I do
Hmm.
think there's room to start thinking about like could you get Debo Samuel in return for Cup? Maybe they're not as worried about it as you are. I don't know, but I mean I think just because we're kind of running out of time on that and you wouldn't want to be late, I would start thinking about that. And I'm not saying it's like panic.
Yeah.
You have to do it today. You have to do it this week if they don't look good. But I would start putting a lot more thought into it just because we'd be running out of time to kind of fix that. Cup's
Right.
been so good that you could still get a ton of value for him right now.
He definitely could. But I mean, if I had him, like a part of the motivation for thinking to myself, well, let's see maybe what I can get for him is because he has been so good that I bet you can get a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's motivating, especially if you're concerned. If you're someone who's like looking at the Stafford injury and thinking about his previous time with the Lions and how he dealt with this injury and missed time, like you said earlier, I think he actually missed a remainder of like a good chunk of a season with the Lions, right,
Oh yeah.
from that back issue.
Yep.
So like whether he's missing time or he's gutting out an injury that's really bothering him, like neither one of those is a good scenario. Uh, so maybe with the trade deadline, maybe you could just kind of float that out there to some different teams and see maybe what you same thing with the Daryl Henderson. Maybe I'm sure he still has some value just given the running back landscape. But I don't feel like it's something you have to make a move on now. Like I said, if they go out against the Packers today and whatever put up like 9 points, uh, then it's a huge red flag for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's just like Cup's been so good that you don't want to give up on that too early.
Uh, I just saw that Corey Davis is inactive. He's officially inactive, and I, that's a weird situation, right? Because I know I'm jumping here, but I just saw this. I wanted to talk about it. Um, Elijah Moore just had that massive game, and then you got Jamison Crowder, who's kind of just been what we figured he would be, which is the not as exciting option, but that steady guy. He scored last week. He's been involved, but now you have the quarterback change again. Back to Zach Wilson. So I just wanted to ask you, like, what without Corey Davis there, which we know that was the guy that Zach Wilson was hyper targeting a lot of the time. Do you think that Jameson Crowder and Elijah Moore are both guys you can start this week? It's against the Texans.
Yeah. I mean, I would have Jamison Crowder at like a wide receiver 3/flex territory right now, and so then that would be up to like owners to decide where their how their roster might help them with that decision. Like, I mean, if you're
Mm,
loaded at a position or I mean, there's just so many different scenarios. I think it might just be more helpful to say where I'm ranking the player in their position group. Like, Crowder's probably a low end wide receiver 3 for me right now. I think there's more upside there than most people that I would put at that spot. But with the quarterback change, we don't really know. Those targets should be going to Crowder and Moore. And Moore has been pretty efficient, and he's put up some nice fantasy numbers the last few weeks. He hadn't done that with Zach Wilson, but sometimes if a guy
right.
is out there and doing it um, with a different quarterback
It
and
could
there's a
translate.
change, exactly, it might have been enough of an attention grabber, or maybe he's actually developing into his role. I mean, there's a couple things that could come into play there, but Zach Wilson's been there. He's seeing it happen. So um, I think with what we did see with Zach Wilson, it would be better for Crowder and worse for Moore would be my assessment right now. But some of that stuff like that's why I guess I throw out there some of that stuff can change even when Zach Wilson's not on the field with what he's been seeing since he's been out. So um, Moore's been good. He's been good for fantasy at least, um, and I think he will get some more volume from Zach Wilson than he had been before the injury. But um, I don't know, man. I've really liked Crowder, and I'm
Right.
hoping that he's good. But I guess I'm trying to assess if I think it's more like what I think he should be happening or what I expect to happen. Um, but before the injury, I think Zach Wilson would have been more inclined to target, uh, Crowder. But I guess I just don't really know. I don't really know this week because a lot's changed.
It is. It's really hard to. It's really hard to look at that situation and know because of mostly because of the quarterback play. Like if we had another week of Joe Flacco, well, we just saw that happen. So we would probably look at Elijah Moore and be like, well, yeah, you can definitely play him this week because, uh, Joe Flacco was just targeting him a lot last week. You can
Yeah.
play Crowder again because we felt safe about that even before that week. But yeah, now Zach Wilson. So I don't know, but I do think you can. I do think both of them are in play because of the matchup and because it's no Corey Davis. So I do feel like it is going to be those two guys.
Well, the other
But I don't
part
know
to
how you could
that,
pick between the two. I mean, Elijah Moore feels like the guy with absolutely feels like the guy with more upside for sure. But
for
he
sure.
also feels like he could go up there and give you a dud too.
Well, the other part of the equation that kind of creates the perfect storm for both receivers hurts my heart to say, but Michael Carter lands on the IR. He's a guy that's been really good for them. He's been getting better and better every week. And 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's gone over 15 points. It seemed like he was actually starting to become like a very nice fantasy piece. He's out for the next 3 weeks, and the other guys behind him have not been good. So, um, you've got Tevin Coleman. Like people are picking these guys up, and I understand that there is an opportunity for volume there, but like Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson aren't that good. They haven't been that good. I think I might lean Ty Johnson just because he's done more in New York than Tevin Coleman
He
has.
just looked better.
Yeah, but I do also think that the Jets know that like either neither of those guys are going to give them what Carter had been. I think he's become a pretty good piece for them. So I think that some volume goes to the passing game. I also think that affects their ability to control like time of possession too, and we could actually see a pretty big uptick in the receiving volume, which could help both guys quite a bit. So like no Corey
Yeah.
Davis, no Michael Carter, like it does make me more intrigued with like Crowder. Like Elijah Moore, I agree has the upside, but I think Crowder, now that I'm thinking about the Michael Carter injury, has me a little more intrigued. I still want to see it this week, especially against Houston, but I don't know. I
It'll
don't
be
see
good to
them
see.
running the ball all that much.
It'll be good to see because regardless of how bad the Jets are, they have had fantasy relevant players week in and week out, and so not like now with Zach Wilson back, who we assume is they are he at least for this season, he's gonna be the future for the Jets,
Yeah.
meaning like he should be the starter. And so starting this week now, a little bit more time into the season, Crowder's started to get involved more. Moore's had some nice weeks now. Had that huge game last week, so like obviously Zach Wilson's been seeing that in film and they've been discussing that at practice. So starting now, we get to see who he likes between these guys. Is Moore a thing for the rest of the season, or is Crowder going to stay steady? That's just a little something to pay attention to this week. I wish I had more confidence in Zach Wilson because if I did, there would be some nice receiving yard total bets out there in the sports books for these two guys. Uh, but it's just so tough to because like what if Zach Wilson goes out there and look like we do remember the first month of the season, right? When it was like 4 interception games.
Oh yeah.
Just absolutely awful. That's in play today too.
The best thing that I think
So
Zach Wilson could do, because like the expectations at this point for the Jets rest of the season are pretty low. I think the best thing Zach Wilson could do for himself is to just sling it.
yeah. Well, and should
Yeah.
against like a Houston.
Like I want him to go out there and I want him to prove to the organization like
Yeah.
I can do it. This is what I'm here to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um
yeah, and having the coaches meeting and you ask the coach, what do you want me to do today? What's the main focus? You just look at him and you go, son, sling it. Okay.
another bummer week for a guy that I've been in love with that nobody else cares about. But Denzel Mims is listed as out. He has had very little attention, allegedly because of the playbook, his understanding of the playbook and his football IQ. But he is also out. The attention that he was getting on the field was while Corey Davis was out, so I thought that might have been, worth looking into. But he's out too. And Keelan Cole has been a nice fill-in piece for the injuries that they've had on that receiving core because this isn't the first one. It's been kind of a season-long thing.
Right.
But yeah, another missed opportunity for Mims.
Another missed opportunity. There was do you have another when I don't know how many more injuries or things like that you had. Um but there was a couple like interesting little things I saw today that I wanted to bring up whenever we do get there.
Sure.
You just let me
Um,
know.
well, we don't. I mean, we don't have too much more as far as like this week's updates go. I mean, we've covered most of them. I guess the other bigger one that we could talk about, we touched on a little bit, was the Patriots backfield. Sounds like Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson have both been questionable. There hasn't been like a clear report on where either guy is at this point, but they are both expected to play, is what I'm reading. So we kind of touched on that where it was the to start the stream, Harris or Stevenson. I agreed that Harris is probably the guy you want to run out there, but just keep in mind they're both questionable and we don't know too much about it.
Yeah, and it sucks having to it kind of sucks that that's one backfield I don't want to have an open opinion about this week because I really don't feel super confident in it. Like I happen to think that Ramondre Stevenson is a more complete back than Damian Harris is, and I think they're both comparable as far as their running ability goes. Like I don't look at Damian Harris and think that he's a much better runner than Ramondre, but I do look at Ramondre and think he's a much better pass catcher. Yet at the same time, it feels like the Patriots have been pretty committed to Damian Harris, even when he's fumbled. Like if he's healthy, they go to him. Last week was the first week where we saw like a true split between him and Stevenson, and that was just a 1 week thing, and it's the Patriots, and so it's just like there's so many variables involved here to really look at that and feel good about one or the other. But what I will say is I like both of them, and in this Titans game, the Titans are that team that like I would expect them to. Wouldn't be surprised if they showed up today against New England, even though they've looked bad. But they're so depleted at this point that that's got to be too much for them to overcome, right? Missing all these guys now. And I say that to say that New England, let's say in a world where they've kind of got control of this game, I mean, I think you're gonna want one of those guys starting in your lineup because at least one of them is probably gonna have a good fantasy day. But maybe both do. I don't know. Um, I would be willing to flex either, but I just can't feel super confident in saying like who's got the lead over the other with those two guys.
Sure. Well, so the Patriots have had what, two or three pretty high scoring games recently, and they seem to, all of them have caught me off guard because it's like, well, where was that coming from? And some of it was defensive play. They've had a couple defensive touchdowns that have helped, but like, I mean, there is a chance. It sounds kind of weird to say, but I think we've seen it enough so far. There is a chance that we're looking at like a 40 something to 20 something scenario in favor of New England. If that were to happen, like both running backs would offer a lot of appeal. Probably more
Right.
so Harris because of the running ability and the clock management, but like, I mean, if they're having a day like that, I think both guys are gonna have a pretty nice fantasy day. Um,
That's kind of yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Well, you were talking about the Patriots defense, their statistics before we started streaming. The Patriots defense has been quietly really solid, right?
they're the number
And now
one
you,
scoring defense in the league.
yeah,
They've allowed
okay,
the fewest points, and Tennessee is so banged up.
right. So by all accounts, you would look at that game and you would think, man, Patriots should be in control. They should be able to run as much as they want, and they love to run if they can. And it would be Harris and Stevenson should both benefit from that. But we've seen how ridiculous the NFL has been over the I don't know, the better part of a month. How many of these games felt so obvious they were going to go one way or the other, and they didn't go that way? So
Yeah,
that's my only hesitation. Titans are gonna. I mean, would you really be shocked if the Titans came out and hung 38 on the Patriots today? You shouldn't be because the NFL's been so unpredictable.
really
Um,
has.
So that's my only like hesitation with it. But yeah, you probably flex both guys and just hope that your guy that you flexed is the one that scores.
Yeah, agreed. The last thing we had on our docket was Zeke. Zeke's been managing an injury, and there are some. I saw at least two reports that are talking about. One said that Zeke might be rested for for a while to get right. Another one said that he might be his volume might just be scaled back. So sounds like there it sounds like there's some real, I don't know, some real juice behind the idea that Zeke is gonna take a step back. Either whether that be if you know in a reduction in volume, or if
Right.
he is just not gonna play for a couple weeks. I think they took the loss to Las Vegas personally because that's a game they probably should have won at home on Thanksgiving, and it probably just has them sitting down and really reevaluating things. They're in a position right now where they are expecting to win their division, so I think they're looking a little farther ahead than most teams right now and thinking like we want to be at our best, you know, come playoff time. Um, so it makes sense, but it's one of those. It seems really early to be getting into those types of conversations, but it sounds like it's real that Zeke could be, you know, could be scaled back at the very least to try to put them in a better position later in the year.
Yeah, I think this is several different factors coming to this potential decision that Dallas is going to make because I think we've both been of the opinion that although Zeke is still a really good running back, he's not quite that elite level Zeke that we used to know him as. It just doesn't appear to be that way just watching him play. But he still had a really good season up until recently, and he did get that knee that he got banged up. And I think when you just have like a little bit lesser version of a Zeke who's now hurt, and he looks hurt when he's playing, it appears like he's hurt. He goes off to the sideline and he's limping. Um, and then you have Tony Pollard. He goes out there on the field, and anytime he gets some space, the dude is so fast and so quick. Like he just looks awesome out there. You just have this like all these things together just would make sense that Pollard would get a little more work, and let's let Zeke heal. And I don't know if that means he's gonna uh, just be inactive for a game or two, or like you said, maybe that just means a lesser workload. I don't know. Either way, it's concerning. If you have Ezekiel Elliott, hopefully you've sort of seen the signs at by this point in the season, and you have Tony Pollard as well. If you have Zeke, you know, I would hope that that's the case. And then at that point, like if we do end up with some reports where it's like, yes, you know, we're going to reduce his workload. I think I'd be actually more inclined to play Tony Pollard between them if they're both active at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and then I don't know. I guess you just have to hope that Zeke heals. They did say that same report that said that they might give him time off to heal. That same report did also say that they aren't considering injured reserve. You know, because they put him on there, then you're talking 3 games at least. So if that's the case, then maybe we're looking at 1 to 2 games where he's inactive, and then they go from there. So, I mean, what can you do? Like I said, if you have Zeke, I hope you have Tony Pollard, and if you don't, and you can still trade for him, if you still have that available, probably gonna have to pay up a little bit, but I think you need to.
See, my biggest bummer for this is I've got Dallas's defense in a couple leagues, and Tony Pollard just tore off a big kick return touchdown last week, or well, on Thursday. So it's like if he's taking on extra volume to give
Oh,
Zeke a
he's off
spell,
that.
yeah, he's not going to be returning those kicks. That hurts me a little
No.
bit.
Yeah, he did have that nice one. He's fun, man. He's a fun player to watch. Stafford or Cam? Poof. Man, I That's a great question because I'm surprised thinking just reading that out loud that it would be this close for me. I'm having a hard time not wanting to go Cam Newton, just given how bad it's been for the Rams lately, given this report about Stafford's chronic back issue, uh, and just Cam Newton's ability to rush the ball, like that upside. Where do you lean that way on that, Dub? Do you have an opinion on that?
I think because of my respect for the Dolphins defense lately, they've been a lot better than they were to start the year. I
Sure.
think it has it pretty close for me because we haven't seen we haven't seen Stafford take the full plunge yet. I think I still lean Stafford just based on what he's done,
Yeah.
but like there is a real possibility that Stafford goes out and has a bad game this week. I don't like him in Lambeau either way. I know he like you said, to your credit, like he has played a lot of games out there, but when it's late in the year and it's cold, I don't think he's been great anyway when he's
Right.
healthy. So
Right.
it's close, man. That one's really close. If you are feeling one way or another, you just go with whatever your heart's telling you to do. Um, because but I think if it's a true tie for you, I probably lean Stafford just based on what he has been doing, and he's been having a pretty good year overall.
I
And
think
this
that's the
this
right
could be
pick.
the week that changes our minds, but it hasn't
I
happened
think
yet.
that's I think that's the right pick. Let's see Cam do it again. Let's see Cam Newton do it again. Before we put him in the lineup over Stafford. Let's go. I would play Stafford too. Um, but I'm only one more good Cam Newton week away from then, especially if he's getting another rushing touchdown. Then at that point forward, I'm probably looking at Cam Newton and thinking like I got to be starting this guy. But I will give it another week and play Stafford as well.
He has been good for coming out of nowhere too, though. I dig it. I want him to do well in Carolina. It's a fun thing for football.
Well, Matt, this was one of the things I was going to mention. We were just talking about Cam Newton real quick. Matt Rule came out, and I don't know. This could be just like that coach hype, coach speak type thing. But he came out and said that there were no issues with Cam Newton's arm strength. And like I said, I don't know how much truth there is to that. That's coming from the coach's mouth. But I will say that throw that he had to uh, who was that to? It was like a seam. It was right up the seam for a touchdown. I think it was McCaffrey. Um, it was one of those like lasers where it goes right past the defender's helmet, like the ear. They call that like that ear. Like Rogers does this, and that ball goes right past the defender's ear, and they don't even look over because they don't know the ball's coming, and it's already right there. Like it was just a great throw. It was a throw I hadn't seen Cam Newton really make in New England. So hey, if that's Cam Newton, if Cam Newton's got that right now, then I'm very intrigued.
Oh yeah.
But I would feel a lot better. I would feel a lot better about seeing it another week first.
Well, we've got a couple that are backing him. I'll come. We'll circle back. Remind me, we're coming back to Cam.
All right.
So we've got PPR pick two: Bateman, Elijah Moore, Brandon Cooks. Um, I mean, probably for me, Bateman and Moore because Bateman's done quite a bit. He's been very efficient, and it seems like he's trending up. But I'm locking Moore in because I think he's got the most upside of those three options, and for me, I'm kind of picking between Bateman and Cooks. No Corey
Yeah.
Davis. We talked about that a little bit, and then Elijah Moore obviously has that upside of the. He just put up like 25 points last week.
Well, and in Houston, their coach just had said yesterday or the day before that the one of the biggest reasons for Brandon Cook's lack of production lately has been the lack of protection for the quarterback. So they're aware that like they want to get Brandon Cooks involved. They're aware that he's probably their biggest threat, and they want to. It just hasn't happened. Bateman does have Hollywood Brown coming back this week, but Bateman's been involved even with him too. It just kind of feels like Bateman's upside's a bit capped, right? It feels like he doesn't have the same type of potential. Like he can't go out there and get that 20-point game that Brandon Cooks can.
It's true.
But you're already playing with fire with Elijah Moore too, with that same territory. uh, I will play Elijah Moore, and I will probably play Brandon Cooks, I think. But I do like Bateman. I do like Bateman quite a bit. I like all three of those wide receivers actually. But I'm gonna play Moore and Cooks this week.
I dig it. Cooks had been really good, especially with Tyrod Taylor back. Like that should be good news for Brandon Cooks.
Daryl Henderson or Saquon and Gesicki or Goddard. Uh, I will probably play Saquon and Goddard. No, I'm gonna play Daryl Henderson and Goddard. Who would you play, Dub?
I agree. I mean, Saquon's not taking a full workload. He's managing an injury. We touched on that a little bit earlier. So, yeah, I go Henderson Goddard.
Yep, same.
What's up,
Let's go
Cyberant?
in Cyber.
Going pretty good over here. Hope you're doing good.
to your favorite fantasy football gurus. Oh yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
Please pick one in standard: Deontay Johnson, Pittman, or Bateman. I mean, come on, bro. Dub could already answer this for me
Josh
on what I would say.
loves Deontay Johnson.
Now, listen, like the talent of all three of these guys. Pittman has certainly. I mean, look, I was one of the guys that said I thought Pittman was going way too late in drafts. All right, but Pittman is growing on me even more throughout the season. I'm becoming a fan of his for sure. Uh, it just feels like I'm a little concerned with this Tampa Bay matchup, man. Whenever the Colts play teams that can get a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz, it concerns me for the pass catchers of that team because I know that we can see that classic Carson Wentz who just completely panics and makes terrible decisions when he's getting pressured constantly. And when he starts to look like he's pressing, that guy makes some wild decisions that really hurt the team. And I say that because Tampa Bay, they got a great rush defense, they get a lot of pressure, but everybody knows that for most of the season it's been nice for the pass catchers playing against Tampa Bay. So it's not like Pittman doesn't have on paper a nice matchup too. But Deontay Johnson is just so locked for 8-9 targets that I can't say for those other guys. And his upside has unfortunately been a little bit lower this year than I thought it would have been. I think that's just a product of the offense right now and Ben Roethlisberger. But I'm gonna play Deontay because I just think that you can't. I don't think no matter what he does, I think you're gonna be happy with what you get from him, and you just have potential for more.
The Pittman thing, Pittman's been very good season long, but it's a bad situation for him this week. I mean, the Colts looked really good last week, and it was all run game, which shouldn't be available to that extent against Tampa Bay. They did just get Sean Murphy-Bunting back too, one of those starting corners that's been out. And those corners have been exploitable to an extent, but they're still pretty good. Pittman's been a pleasant surprise. We were both talking about him in the offseason, how we thought he could be, a really nice post-type sleeper, and he has been that. He's been great. But I go Deontay too. Carson Wentz has been bad against pressure, which Tampa Bay will offer. Indianapolis is not going. I mean, you just have to know. You have to understand how much of that production came from Jonathan Taylor, and I think that's going to be really capped this week against Tampa Bay. So while Indy's looked really good the last couple weeks, I just don't think they're going to be able to do things that way this week, and it's gonna be harder for Pittman to have a good game. A lot harder for Pittman to have a good game this week. And Deontay Johnson with his route tree and his role in the offense is just a very safe play that has the potential to offer a good point cap too, like a good ceiling.
Yeah, like if he can get in the end zone, you would expect Deontay Johnson's floor to be 6-7 catches and 70 yards plus, in my mind. So, then if he gets that or more and scores, great day, good day, great day. Pittman just has that window there where it's like what was with Buffalo last week, where it's a couple catches, and you go, son of a bitch.
Yeah, and that's not. I mean, all respect goes to Cincinnati's defense too. That's who Pittsburgh plays this week. They've been very good, but Deontay's a very crisp route runner who finds and creates space regularly. So he's just a safe play. Got another update.
Yeah.
He's a safe play that I go Deontay for sure. Another report about scaling Zeke back.
Really?
Yeah.
I missed it.
That's 3 reports now that Zeke's going to be scaled back to be with the hopes that he'll be healthy for the stretch run. So, touched on that a little bit, but that's the situation for Zeke. There was an injury update situation that I think was worth mentioning. I don't know how much it might mean. I don't think anybody does because we haven't really seen him play that much. But Curtis Samuel is returning this week. It's somebody that, if he has been on your radar, you've been waiting a long time. But I'm interested. I scooped him up in our league just to see kind of how it plays out. I mean, he had a pretty good second half of the season last year with the Panthers, and I mean, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for him in that receiving core. There isn't really anybody that would demand volume over him. Yeah, I mean Terry McLaurin is obvious. That's why I'm not really mentioning that. But like aside from Terry McLaurin, like I don't think anybody's really going to be cutting into what Curtis Samuel could offer in that offense. So I kind of want to see how that plays out, but there really
Hmm.
isn't too much exciting as far as like potential last minute pickups go, but that was one that was on my radar.
Is he officially active?
Yeah.
Okay. I will. It'll be interesting if he's active and he's well he is active
Well, wait, they say
if he
likely to return, but it is
okay.
it was reported, yeah, likely to return.
Well, the most interesting thing about that to me is it's the same scenario for Logan Thomas. He's likely going to be active in return as well, and those are both guys that we think are going to be playing more in the middle of the field. So
Yeah.
we'll see how those targets get distributed. Um, I mean, I would just be happy to see Curtis Samuel make it through a couple games. That's more my main focus with him first. Like, and if he can do that, then all right, let's get some catches. uh, but yeah, it is worth mentioning because he does obviously if he can't stay healthy, he does have a lot of upside. Ron Rivera is very familiar with him coming from Carolina. And that was the thing too is Samuel knows that offense in and out already. I remember Ron Rivera talking about that earlier in the season. When before Curtis Samuel came back, from his first initial injury, he was asked about how long Samuel would need to get sort of kind of get involved with the offense, and he was like, no time at all. He could just start right away. He's like, he knows this offense.
Well, dude's had what 3 months to study the playbook.
No kidding. Pittman, Bateman, or Ty Johnson. Yeah, so now we're into the flex, and I'll play Pittman. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I mean the factors that we were mentioning were reasons to start Deontay Johnson. Pittman's still been very good.
Yeah, I mean, just because I'm choosing Deontay over Pittman doesn't mean I don't like him. If this was a 12-team league, and even if this was a 12-team league and you were talking flex, then Bateman would be a guy I would flex. Ty Johnson could be a flex just because of the Michael Carter news.
Come on,
I'm sorry, man.
dude.
I'm sorry. But I mean, shit. Are we really gonna bank on Tevin Coleman? I don't wanna.
No, I'm
I
going
think Ty
Ty
Johnson has
over.
looked much better.
Yeah, we go Ty Johnson over Tevin Coleman. God damn it,
I saw
Michael
Ty
Carter.
Johnson. I saw Ty Johnson had his rushing and receiving prop was 55 yards. I was like, maybe we're sitting here looking at Elijah Moore and Jamison Crowder, thinking like, okay, these guys are going to eat a little bit now, and I think they will. But maybe the guy we should be looking at is Ty Johnson.
After my college football blunder yesterday, I have 8 cents remaining in my DraftKings account. I put literally the rest of my balance on a game, and it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go. So my plan is I'm going to put 8 cents down on something that feels pretty safe tonight or today for the 1 o'clock games, and then hope that hits, right? And then I'm going to put that 16 cents down on something that feels really good on the 4 o'clock games. I'm hoping to end up with about 50 cents by the end of the night.
Well, because then you got the 8 o'clocker after
Yep.
you win those two.
Yep.
Yep. And then of course we have Monday.
I am so it's like a challenge accepted kind of a situation for me. I'm like, you know what? We can bring this back, and we gonna. Listen, out of everything everyone was saying, at least I put my money where my mouth was.
That's fair. Have you already made that bet? What was it? Or you don't know? Or you don't have it yet?
I have not picked my 8 cent bet for the day yet.
Okay.
I was thinking
Well,
like,
we'll
do I
need to
just put
give-
6 cents down so that I have a couple cents to play with if it does go south? Then it's gonna take me
Depending
that
on how
much
stream
longer to
goes right
bounce
before
back.
kickoff, we'll have to give you 5-10 minutes to figure that out at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get to work. Let's take a look here. I'm gonna browse around. Oh yeah, so I wanted to come back to Cam Newton. So the
Okay.
Cam Newton thing, talking about his arm strength, I think it's definitely worth mentioning. It's definitely something I understand is on people's minds as far as like what his upside could be or what he has to offer. Can we just talk about how the last 2 starting quarterbacks for the Patriots have been criticized for their arm strength though? because it was Tom Brady who has no issues in Tampa Bay with his arm strength, and then it was Cam Newton. It just gives me this vibe that New England likes to run such a conservative passing offense that like this other stuff is coming from the outside, and they're just seeing a lack of these deep balls and kind of labeling these guys as having arm issues. Like, okay, Tom Brady was
Sure.
like 42 years old, and they weren't throwing it deep, and so like they were like, oh, okay, well that must be because of his arm strength. And then Cam Newton had taken a step back. He's still relatively young, especially for a quarterback, but he took a step back in production, goes to New England, and they use him as like this basically a wildcat scenario. And they're like, oh, well, Cam Newton doesn't have any arm strength left. Then he goes somewhere else, and they're like, oh, well, there's no problems with that. He goes back to Carolina. So it's like,
Yeah.
to me, it's just New England at this point, is kind of how I feel about those arm strength rumors. They don't like to throw the ball deep. Cool. I don't think we need to turn it into more than that.
Right.
I get that the reports are out there and it is worth monitoring, but it just kind of seems like it just seems weird to me that the last two guys that played significant snaps at quarterback for the Patriots have had arm strength issues that disappeared when they left.
Right. Well, we think. The thing is that it would be it's interesting that Matt Rule said that. Maybe he was asked a direct question about Cam Newton's arm, and then maybe it was one of those like, as a coach, you sort of like you back up your player, you gas him up, as the kids say, and you're like, nah, his arm's totally fine. Like it might just be that. But if it's not that, and he was speaking from the heart on it, and he's saying like, no, like Cam Newton's arm is totally fine, then it is really weird. It is really strange what we saw uh out of New England with Cam Newton. But he's been out for a while too. Like he hasn't played football in a while. Maybe this time not playing football and healing up has done him good. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it could
It's
be.
really not. He hasn't really played football this year. He played a little bit in the preseason, right? Because the Patriots, they cut him or released him before the season started. So I mean, he hasn't really played much football lately, and maybe that's exactly what he needed.
It's true. Could be a factor. The what was I gonna say? Oh, the other part of this too with Cam Newton, like, what, we're one good game away from him being the starter over Darnold.
Oh yeah, I think if he does anything even close to how he performed last week, I don't think that's Sam Darnold's gig anymore.
No.
And I don't even know how you do that anyway because of Cam Newton's personality. Like this was weeks later. You remember when the Patriots first released Cam Newton, how confusing it was for a lot of people? They were like, "Wow, they're really that sold on Mac Jones already?" And I think it was even Cam Newton himself came out and said that it. He understood why they did it, and he didn't really hold anything against them for it. Was that it was a locker room situation? Like Cam Newton has he's such a strong personality type that him being a backup quarterback on a roster like New England when a rookie comes in just doesn't really work, because it doesn't allow Mac Jones to be the leader that he's supposed to be as a quarterback in that locker room. So you just remove that situation completely and then you're not dealing with it. How you going to have Cam Newton as a backup for Sam freaking Darnold in the locker room? That isn't going to happen either.
No,
I
that's a
think
tough one to sell.
I think that unless Cam Newton completely drops the ball, like just is terrible at football, like if he's just not a good player anymore, that's the only scenario in which Sam Darnold gets his job back. Because it's not like he was lighting the world on fire.
No.
I don't know what happened to that guy the first 3 weeks of the season, but that is not the same dude that we saw from like week 4 on, which is very weird. Sam Darnold, like how you play so good for the first 3-4 weeks of a season. I mean, he looked legitimately good. Yeah, a few bonehead plays, those are going to happen, but like as a whole, he looked like a guy that should be a starting quarterback in the league, and then just look like the dude from the Jets with Adam Gase. Flip of a switch. I don't get it.
Yeah, he had it's got to be mental. I think like
A lot of it has to be.
he was with the Jets and like the longer the team went without success, the like harder it seemed to like put pressure on him and it kind of just snowballed. And then he goes to Carolina and things were looking good, and right around the same time that McCaffrey goes down, Darnold's production dipped. Like as soon as McCaffrey went down. And so I imagine McCaffrey was helping him a lot as far as
Hmm.
like the defensive focus goes and things like that. Um, so I think it's just mental. And I think there was some change there that occurred, and then he didn't have that crutch of Christian McCaffrey to really help him through some of that. I think that's what happened, but like at this point, it was long enough before he got hurt that it's like, I mean, I don't know that he's going to shake it. It just seems like it's something that maybe he's not recovering from, and maybe his confidence is
Right.
so far gone that it's a real issue for him,
Right.
like a Josh Rosen.
That guy got put through the ringer.
Twice. He got put through the ringer with what, the Cardinals, and then he goes
Yeah.
to Miami, and they were like, "Hey, cool, welcome to the club. We're happy to have you, but we're selling everything. We're getting rid of all your pass
Yeah.
protection. We're trading our targets away. Like, go get them." So bad.
Really.
So listen, DraftKings has a
Hmm.
minimum bet of 10 cents, and I only have
Hmm.
6. So what we're doing is we're playing some free daily fantasy, okay, over on standard DraftKings. I'm gonna put together some free fantasy lineups to try to get my balance up high enough. But we're bringing this back. I'm not depositing, and we'll keep tabs on this for the rest of the season. We're coming back.
So what are you saying you're doing? You're doing daily?
I switched over to daily because you can get into some free lineups and win a few bucks here and there. So I'm going over to daily fantasy. I'm gonna get this balance up high enough that I can get back in the sports book. Okay, my balance is currently lower than the minimum, the the minimum bet you can place. You cannot bet less than 10 cents. We're bringing it back.
Was there I don't think there was much else news wise, right? That was pretty much it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Maybe we can just hang out and chat, talk some bets. Maybe we'll get some people jumping in, asking questions for game time. Too bad you don't have any money throw down there because I see Devontae Smith's got receiving yards 56.5. What?
Dude, I've done that a couple
Gets
times
the
this year, and
Giants.
it gets a little weird. he the two times that I've bet on that around well, I think I went 70 once with him and came just short. But the other one was like
Mm.
55 or something. It was right around there, and he had like 39 to the last drive. It's like, come on, Devonta.
My confidence is completely shot on picking any winners as far as just teams go. I just can't do it anymore. It's ridiculous. With how ridiculous these games have went. I did look through a bunch of props this morning. I only ended up with a few, I think. It's hard to wait until Sunday to make these picks. All the good stuff's gone by then. So that's why we bet on hockey. One of these days I'll quit doing parlays and going 2 for 4, 3 for 4, 4 for 5. I was looking through all my parlay bets in hockey over the last couple weeks. If I just quit betting parlays, I'd be doing okay.
I was listening to the hockey game on my way home last night. The Red Wings and the Sabres, and the
Yeah.
Wings Buffalo scored first, and then the Wings scored 2 goals within like a minute and 16 seconds or something. They were like right up one after another. And it all happened in the second period. We go all the way to the third. with like a minute and a half left. Buffalo pulls their goalie and they get one in. Like right at the end of regulation. It was like 30 seconds left, minute left.
Mm.
And they went to overtime, and then it was like 30 seconds into overtime, Detroit scored. They literally put a guy out there to do the face-off. He won the face-off, skated to the bench, and they swapped him for Lucas Raymond, one of their better scorers lately. And they came out, and Lucas Raymond scored. So it was like really weird situation, but
quick.
they had a guy in for the face-off only, and then he swaps for the guy that scores the game-winning goal on the same possession.
Nice.
Kind of wild.
I did see that was a close game.
Yeah, I went from like, oh man, like I don't know, I went from being super bummed to like that they gave up the goal to tie it to like, oh my god, we're
Yeah.
doing things.
Red Wings are one of those teams I just rarely bet their games. They're difficult to predict. Too much of a wild card for me to want to risk.
Right? They really are. They're the team that hangs with the good teams and hangs with the bad teams. Wait, what do we have going on here? I might have a. I'm taking this more serious than I probably should, but
What, your daily?
yeah, these free daily games. Devonta Freeman's playing, or Devonta Freeman's been the guy, but Latavius Murray's back this week, right?
He was back last week too.
Was he?
He had something like 10 touches, 10 carries. But Freeman was the guy again. He got in. He scored.
Do I play them both for salary reasons? Because Latavius Murray's salary is super low.
I wouldn't. I'd pick one.
Well, I got Freeman as my 1.5 multiplier, because you have to double their salary to put them in that prime slot.
Right. Is this just for one particular game, or is this every game?
This is for the Browns Ravens game.
Oh, okay. What's Kareem Hunt's price? With his first game back, is he cheaper?
I mean, he's a little cheaper, but he's still at seven grand.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
Latavius Murray's 3,600, bro. I'm doing it. I got Devonta Freeman in my multiplier, and then I got Lamar, Chubb, Andrews, and then I ran out of money, so I got Njoku and Latavius Murray out there. Run it.
Sup, fellas? Center League. Pick 2, Mike Williams, Chase Claypool, or Deonta Foreman. Or Ty Johnson. Let me look real quick. Sorry, I'm bad sometimes with if I get too many names. I do have to look at who they're playing because it's hard for me to remember sometimes.
Claypool's just coming back.
He
Against
didn't play last week.
I think he
played last
I think he
week
played last week.
because I think I
playing
won against
against-
him in fantasy. He had a good game.
They're playing against Cincy.
Okay,
Yeah, he went 5 for 93 last week against the Chargers.
and I know the Titans have the Patriots, and the Chargers have the Broncos. I'm probably gonna play both receivers. But Ty Johnson is an option too. That's right. Forgot about that. Yeah. I think Ty Johnson has like an okay chance this week. Hey, scoring. I'm probably gonna play Mike Williams, Chase Claypool. I don't really want to play Deonta Foreman. Even I saw that thing about him getting the bulk of the carries, and so maybe he falls into the end zone. But I'm concerned with the Titans' offense this week. Patriots are a tough matchup going against them, and Tennessee's so depleted on offense. They just have such a lack of a threat of weapons. I don't really want to play Foreman that much, so I'll play Mike Williams and Chase Claypool.
They're gonna offer a lot more upside too.
Yeah, yeah. The upside is just so hard for me to ignore with those guys.
Agreed. Agreed. I
Ty
have seen a
Johnson
couple.
just feels like that dude that we're ignoring, and I mean I definitely am doing this, but might regret that after today. He could be just
I
one
saw
of
him
those
play
like
for
sneaky
Detroit, and I
flicks.
hate him.
Yeah, I hear you. He just I don't know. He hasn't looked bad when he's had opportunities.
I have seen. We've seen some familiar faces, but I've also seen a couple new faces today or new names. We just like to throw it out there once in a while. But if you are new to the channel and you dig what we're doing, definitely hit that subscribe button. Not only does that help the channel grow, but it also helps you guys get a notification to let you know anytime we go live. We do Sunday mornings, and we usually do Tuesday nights too to talk about any updates or injury updates or waiver targets. But if it's just a bad week and there's really nobody there, there's been some times where we're like, life happens. We could use a little bit of a break. That's happened a couple times, but waivers have been a little rough lately. I mean, they've been really rough lately.
Real bad. It's that time of year. There is something I wanted to bring up that I just remembered. I saw a report today that said that Urban Meyer mentioned creating backfield touches for Laviska Shenault this week. Do you know how they were doing that with Agnew a little bit?
Yeah.
And he was kind of just this utility guy, and that was supposed to be what Laviska somewhat was for that team, and so he just became completely irrelevant, really. If they actually do that today, and he gets a little bit more involved in the passing game, even if it's just a couple more looks, I don't. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, I don't. It probably won't provide any sort of consistency fantasy wise week in and week out, but it's something that's kind of interesting to pay attention to because I'm sure he's been. I wonder what his ownership percentage is in fantasy leagues. It's got to be pretty low, right? Like a lot of people have probably moved on from Laviska at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, you had
And
the shark injury, and it was looking like Marvin Jones and Chenault would be like locks for fantasy production, and Trevor Lawrence has just been so bad.
yeah, he has been. But I do like Chenault as a player. I like it. I like his ability, and if they did get him more involved in the backfield a little bit, I think that's really interesting because I think he's like a Debo. I think he's a bit like a Debo in his play style. Like he's a very physical player, wide receiver, almost more like running back than wide receiver, but just capable of catching the ball. It's almost more like just give that guy the ball in his hands and let him get a little bit of space, and he can create. If so, I think that could be good for his fantasy value if they actually do get him involved more like that. Just kind of the whole we're going to manufacture touches. Like if they actually do that, I think it could lead to some good value for him. I just looked, he's 46% owned. I don't know, like it's not I don't really feel great about anybody on the Jags, but I mean maybe Marvin Jones is the dude, without Agnew now. Like maybe Marvin Jones becomes a little bit more of a focus again because he had some nice weeks early on in the season. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is going to come down to Trevor Lawrence stepping up and playing better. But I am interested. I am a little interested in Laviska. I'm going to watch for that situation and see if he gets involved or not. Got that lineup, bro?
Yeah, I got one, but there's about 6 free lineups here we can win some money on. So I got another one here I'm putting together. This one's sponsored by Miller Lite. I haven't done daily fantasy in a while, and actually it's pretty fun. So I don't know, maybe it's something I end up doing a little more often than I was, but it looks like this is like for all the day games, the 1 o'clocks and the 4:30s. I'm going a little unorthodox here, but I went Cam Newton with my quarterback. Miles Sanders and Ty Johnson for some budget running backs, and then I loaded up at receiver. I got Debo, Jamar Chase, and Mike Williams going, who are not the most expensive guys, but I think offer some really high upside here. Now I'm
Uh-huh.
at tight end.
And that's a game by game thing.
Hmm?
Are these all these lineups you're doing? Are they just they're individual games that you pick players out of?
No, this one. Well, this Miller Lite one is 1 o'clock. The 1 o'clock and 4:30
The
games.
1 o'clock games. Oh, okay, fourth. Yeah. Oh man.
Gives me the Dolphins defense. That was another one I thought might be worth mentioning. We're getting at a point in the year where maybe your lineup's been pretty set or your roster's pretty well established. But Miami's defense is somebody that I picked up recently because the rest of their schedule looks pretty nice and they have been playing
Mm-hmm.
better overall. They play Carolina this week, which feels a little different with Cam Newton out there. It's a little less predictable, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, I mean, Miami's defense was really nice last year, and it looks like they're getting it together again. So that was another thing I wanted to kind of throw out there.
Yeah, I'd picked them up the previous week with the same thought, and they just were underwhelming. Who the hell did they play against? Let me look that up real quick. It was not. It was just this past week, I think. They just didn't perform as well as I thought they would. Oh, it's the Jets, and they ended up with 4 fantasy points against the Jets. And I looked at that and I was like, well, I think like if good Cam Newton shows up with Carolina, I think that they're gonna play better than the Jets did.
Right.
So that's why I had moved on. But yeah, I agree. I was looking at that schedule, thinking there was some nice matchups there.
Throwing Miles Sanders in this daily lineup had me thinking a little bit too. Like he got involved early, and it looked like they last week, and it looked like he might be in a different situation than he was before the injury. We weren't really as
Might have been,
down on
might be.
his ability as much as the situation, but we were really down on the situation. So kind of
Yeah.
something, kind of something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Eagles' remaining schedule for the rest of the year, it's a really nice schedule, and it does make Miles Sanders a lot more interesting to me, considering how well Philly has ran the ball for. I mean, hell, what's it been? Probably like 5 or 6 games at this point. Like they've been pretty successful running the ball ever since Miles Sanders got hurt. They had
Yeah.
Jordan Howard, Boston Scott doing it, and then Jalen Hurts has been running the ball well. Uh, yeah, Miles Sanders' first game back, at just shy of 100 yards, right? I think he fumbled in that game and was taken out of the game for a little bit, but did ultimately come back out and look good. Um, he could be one of those like sneaky value last minute trades if people still have that ability to trade in their league. I did think about it myself.
He was on waivers for in our league recently, and then the guy that dropped him picked him back up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's something I'm in a position to consider because Chase Edmonds is out for an extra week. I have Eckler and Jacobs, who I feel pretty decent about, but like Jacobs has been a little up and down. Eckler can get hurt, and I have like nothing behind there without. I had Edmonds and Carter, and they're both done for
Right.
a while.
Yeah, you could look to do that. I know that Cody, the guy that has him in our league, I know that I know he's willing to trade Sanders. I know that much. Or at least he was before that game last week.
Right.
I need one running back, one flex, and one receiver. Keenan Allen, Adam Thielen, AJ Dillon, Saquon Barkley, Cordell Patterson. I will probably play Patterson over Dillon. Just given that it seems like it seems, we don't know this for sure, but it seems like Aaron Jones is going to be back this week. From the reports we've had, it's leaned more towards optimistic side, but it's no guarantee. If I'd have to look at the schedule and see how those games line up, the Falcons and then with the Packers game, to see if you can wait on that news. Packers is a 4:30 game, and the Falcons is a 1 o'clock. So unfortunately, you're not gonna know. So I'm playing Patterson for the running back. For the flex and receiver, Keenan Allen's in, and then I'm probably looking between Thielen and Saquon.
Thielen's been on a heater. Well, he just had like a 20-something point game last week, and he was pretty good and consistent before then. I'm worried about Barkley's volume when they're talking about him playing with an injury and not really
Right.
showing that juice that's gonna allow him to have a really nice game on fewer touches.
Right. Yeah. So maybe we wait on Saquon for a week because I do have some concerns with that as well. To me, Keenan is a must play of that group. Keenan Allen is a must play, and obviously you have a little bit of concern with Patterson's injury, but if he's active, then I think you have to play him as well. He's a must play, and so sure, the other guys are the ones that make the conversation more interesting, and because we are both concerned with Barkley's injury and Aaron Jones back, obviously takes away from AJ Dillon. We can go with Adam Thielen. AJ Dillon would just be a nice play if Aaron Jones wasn't active. And the Packers, I think, have a bye next week, right? So it's very possible that they let Aaron Jones sit for another week. Let me double check on that, but I'm pretty sure the Packers have a bye. They do. They have a bye after this game. So, like, why even bring? I mean, it's against the Rams, so maybe it's one of those, like, all hands on deck situations for the Packers wanting to win this game. But my thing is, like, they've had Aaron Jones out. Why bring him back a week before your bye week? Most teams usually wait. Unfortunately, we're just not going to get to. If you have that a scenario like Tech Shot has, you really can't wait because it's a 4:30 game, so you're not going to have anybody else to plug in.
It's true.
I guess you have the. I mean, the Vikings game is at 4:30, so you could play Keenan Allen, you play Patterson, and then you can make a decision there to either play Adam Thielen in your flex, or if Aaron Jones is not activated, I would prefer to play AJ Dillon, I think. What would you do there? If Aaron Jones wasn't active and it's AJ Dillon or Thielen, then would you still go Thielen?
Um, probably still go Thielen
Yeah.
because of the matchup against the Rams with the running. I know they haven't been like super elite like they have in the past, but it's close. It's close, but
Yeah.
I think I still go Thielen. Thielen started slow. He's been actually pretty good for the last month and a half. Um, and he's up to like wide receiver 10, 12 territory in PPR.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. He's one, two, three, four. In 4 of the last 5 games, he's scored.
Yeah, eater.
Fair enough.
If it's standard scoring, I mean I probably think more about Dylan without Aaron Jones, but if it's PPR, I go with Allen and Thielen.
I better pull up my fantasy team for games, make sure I'm not missing something. Oh, this question just in from Josh. Kareem Hunt, DJ Moore, or Jalen Waddle play too?
Chat, I can't do that. There's a conflict of interest here. You gotta help him out. Come on, chat. Who is it? DJ Moore, Kareem Hunt, or Jalen Waddle? Pick two.
Pick two. Because that's my situation.
Pitts or Gronk? Probably going Pitts. I know Gronk has been a touchdown scorer, and it makes it a tough call. I just I think
Yeah.
I think without Ridley, Pitts is just somebody I'm inclined to start for upside over a lot of guys. He started out slow, but he since Ridley's taken his mental vacation or whatever, Pitts has been pretty solid.
Um, man.
It's hard though because like if Gronk goes out and gets a two touchdown game, that he's probably already won that decision.
I'll
Starting
probably I'll probably play Pitts too, just because of the matchup, really, the Jacksonville matchup. But I think most weeks I would probably like I think Gronk is back to. He seems like he's healthy again. He had 6 catches last week, was in the game involved. I do think there are a lot of weeks I'd rather play Gronk than Kyle Pitts, but this particular week I can play Pitts over Gronk. That's fine.
Elijah Mitchell is expected to play for San Francisco this week, so I don't know what your other options are, but I might be looking at
Yeah.
some of your other options over Wilson.
Yep. For the reason Dub just mentioned, I agree. Mitchell seems like Mitchell's going to be playing, so when Mitchell's been active, he has been the lead guy for them. It obviously would depend on. I mean, if you're considering starting Wilson Jr., there might be some tough options there. So I'd be curious, South City, if you're still in here, what other options you're looking at. I got a couple bets in. Oh man, I could use a good week this week in fantasy. Got a guy back, feels good. Would like to see. I'd like to see Hopkins and Kareem Hunt in my lineup at the same time.
I
Damian
hate that.
Harris, Hilliard, and Foreman. What's that?
I hate when you feel like you're always missing one of your big players.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Uh, if are we just picking one? If we're just choosing one here, I'm taking Damian Harris between those three. I can't feel. Main reason being is because I can't feel any sort of confidence in what Tennessee's going to do with their backfield, and I also am not particularly confident in Tennessee's offense without AJ Brown, without Julio Jones. I would like it. I would have felt better if at least AJ Brown was there, take a little bit of pressure off the run game. So I want to go with Damian Harris this week.
Same. Foreman, we were saying Foreman's probably the play in that backfield. Yeah, this week we're gonna just keep an eye on how it plays out.
Right.
Ugh. This one is the Giants Eagles game only. Ugh.
Giants, Eagles.
Ugh.
Uh, your super cheap play could be Evan Ingram. No Sterling Shepard, no Kadarius Toney, so it's going to be Galladay and Slayton. And neither one of those guys are slot players.
Maybe I go YOLO and put him in as my captain.
Oh no. He could end up with like one catch, but it might be a touchdown.
Yeah, because then that kind of sets me up to pick whoever else I want, though.
Yeah. I mean, you know the risk, but with neither with neither wide receiver active that would play in the slot not there, it leaves a little bit of a window there for Evan Ingram.
Done. I got Hurts, Smith, Barkley, Goddard. Let's go. They've got Tony out too, right? It's
Yeah.
does John Ross get one?
Devontae Smith or Saquon? Well, I I probably played Devontae Smith because I know Dub and I share the same feelings on Saquon. We talked about him earlier. We're just concerned for his health. Don't know if he's going to be limited in this game or not. How much work he's going to get.
Chat didn't help you out with that. Chat, pick two. We got
Oh,
Jalen
no.
Waddle, Kareem Hunt, and DJ Moore. Pick
DJ
two.
Moore.
Kareem Hunt, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore. Pick two. Come on, help us help you.
Brandon Cooks or Kareem Hunt? Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
I think Brandon Cooks can get back on track to being more consistent. I don't know if you were in here, James, earlier when we were talking, if you're still in here, but if you went to just go adjust your lineup. But coaches were talking about how the lack of protection from the offensive line has been an issue for being able to get more targets to Brandon Cooks, which makes sense. But to me, that's just saying like they haven't forgot about Brandon Cooks. They want to keep him involved. He's a good player, and I think it'll happen. I hope Kareem Hunt. I hope that there's no limitations on him this week. Hopefully, he can go out there and feel good and not have any setback, and it's a competitive game that he's going to stay involved in. That's what I'm hoping for. Maybe he gets involved in the pass game like he does here and there. Gets one of those like 6 for 70-yard games. Takes one to the house. We'll take that. All right, James, you and me both, man. I put Kareem in my flex this week. First week back, and I'm riding with it. Cheers to us.
Yeah, I'm rolling him out there in that sleeper league too. I mean, that's a
Oh,
little
that's right.
different because it's deep, but
Yeah.
he'll be fine. So now you're saying DJ Moore or Jalen Waddle?
Yeah. Neither one of them have the best matchups though.
DJ Moore.
Yeah, I mean that's who I'm playing. He's going up against Miami. You know that those corners, how good they can be. Carolina is who Miami's playing, so Carolina's played some pretty good defense too.
Yeah, Stephon Gilmore out there.
I know. I think with the way Waddle plays, though, I don't know that he's a receiver with the way Miami's using him right now that you would shadow with the Gilmore. Because he goes on a lot of motion. They put him all over the field. He's rarely on the outside. And a lot of his stuff is short. Like, I just don't know that a team would look at that and be like, we got to put our number one guy on Waddle. I think they would probably look at that more like, we'll give up that short stuff to Waddle. But I'm going to go with DJ Moore. He scored last week. First game with Cam Newton. Hey, maybe Cam brings the heat. You know what I mean? Let's get DJ Moore back in the game.
I mean, they
Let's get
had
12 targets.
they go way back. I think that'll help more over what you were getting from Darnold before he
Right.
got hurt.
Right.
Ertz rest of the season, I mean, last I checked in a half PPR, he was up to tight end 6, but his biggest
Who's that?
game
Oh,
came
Ertz.
with Colt McCoy at quarterback. So, I mean, I think he takes a little step back with Kyler Murray out there. It's not going to be the same, but I think he's a tight end one. It's just that the bottom end of the tight end one is a lot different than the top end. But he is somebody that should be starting for somebody. It kind of depends on your other options, really.
I like Ertz, and I actually like him more with Kyler, just because I think the offense is better with Kyler. I mean, I shouldn't even say I think that. I mean, everybody knows that offense is better with Kyler Murray. A lot more points that they score, and I just want teams that catch the ball from quarterbacks who are going to score a lot. Uh, and who was what was his name? Was it Max? Is it Max Williams? Is that right? Who's a tight end for Arizona that got hurt earlier this year?
Yeah, Max Williams.
Okay, so Kyler was targeting him. He was becoming a thing before he got hurt, and then they immediately went and traded for Ertz, which told us basically that Arizona does intend to keep the tight end position involved. They want a guy that can get it done for them there. I like Ertz rest of the season as I don't know, somewhere in between like that 6 and 9 tight end range. He just has such high touchdown upside every week.
Curiosity, because I know you've been a little lower on Pitts, partially because he's a rookie, and I get that. But like
Mm-hmm.
Ertz or Pitts, the rest of the season,
Uh, hmm.
pretty close.
Yeah, it's just that I do recognize Pitt's upside, but for different reasons, sometimes in multiple weeks. But the reality is, like, even without Ridley, Pitts has been, for what you wanted, Pitts has been pretty disappointing. Uh, I guess I'd go Kyle Pitts there, but they are very close to me.
When we were, and I mean, there's still a lot of season left, but when we were talking about Pitts in mock drafts, I want to say that I had said like that I think he's going to be around like tight end 6 or tight end 7, but that you're hoping for or you're investing in the upside that he could get as high as like 3. And he is hovering around. I think right now he is in that like 6 7ish range. I think he's right there next to Ertz for tight ends, and that's kind of why I was curious
Pulling it up,
what you thought about that.
pulling it up right now. Do we go? Well, we've had some bye weeks. So if I go with average instead of total points on the season, because there's still teams that haven't had bye weeks, so I still think the total points on the season is not completely accurate. Uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, Pitts is tight end 9. Ertz is tight end 12 for average points per game. Which you're talking about 8.7 points average to 9.2. It's not like there's a big gap there. So yeah, they are close.
Well, and Ertz had that
But
time in Philly where he wasn't really being used to. Was a different
right,
situation.
right.
I mean, like I own Ertz in 2 leagues, I think now, and kind of just looking at it like if Kyler Murray doesn't make it back for the rest of the season, I feel like I'm winning as an Ertz owner
Yeah.
because 88 and 2 touchdowns was really nice.
Yeah, Pitts. I mean, I think Pitts is going to have a stronger finish to the season to not be looked at as a bust, because at tight end 9, I don't remember what his ADP was exactly, but it was what, like, was it a 6th round?
It
I
was
know it was
like
pretty high.
just after Hawkinson, and I want to say Andrews was going just after him. I think he was between Hawkinson and Andrews.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So if Pitts doesn't finish as a top 4 tight end, I think he's a bust. But uh, definitely at the back end of the tight end 1 position, it's not at all. Just for the draft capital, it's not what you wanted. Mark Andrews is tight end 2.
Yeah. Well, and the other guys ahead of him have had some issues too. Like Kittle missed a few weeks, and he wasn't great before that. He looks like he's back now. Um, Waller just got
Yeah, I
banged
mean,
up and missed the rest of the game on Thursday.
both those guys are ahead of Pitts still with their average points per game. They're both still several spots ahead of him. Dalton Schultz is up there. Dawson Knox is there, obviously. Might have to put him as a flex rest of the season. I've had bad injuries this year. I mean, if you're in a I don't ever love doing it, but if you're in a deeper league or if you've just had a real bad injury luck, waivers are thin, you can do that. We've had people in our we've got a really competitive league. We've had a guy who has multiple seasons. He'll have like 3 tight ends and start 2 of them, and it has worked for him in the past if you have the right guys.
Yeah.
I don't know that Ertz is involved enough weekly. Like I look at Ertz as the same as a lot of these other tight ends that aren't at the top of the tier list. He's in that next group below of a very large sample size of tight ends where uh if they have like 6 catches for 60 yards or they score or both, then like you're happy with that week. But a lot of those guys are very capable of just not doing much that game. You know, a ton of them are. The Dalton Schultzes, even unfortunately Hawkinson's been that way, Pitts has been that way, Ertz, Goddard, like a lot of these tight ends that you start if you have them, but they've all had weeks where they get you 2 or 3 points, and you just have to take that, man. That's just a tight end spot. It's really, every year 1 to 3 tight ends kind of separate themselves from the rest of them. And for all of Travis Kelce's, he hasn't been anything like what you would have hoped him to be if you drafted him. But he's still the number 1 tight end in fantasy by a pretty long shot too. But it's like him, it's Mark Andrews, and then is there even another tight end after those 2 guys that belong at that top? I'm not sure that there is another guy. Gronk was sort of headed towards that direction until he got hurt.
I think Knox is there. Like I scooped
Might be.
Knox up in a different league and ran him out there over Hawkinson this week, and he had like 18 points in a PPR.
Yeah. He had a huge week, but the week before that he had 1 catch, right?
He had, well, that
One
includes
for
Thursday. So on Thursday he had 3 for 32 and 2 touchdowns. The week before
Okay.
that he
And then the
went
week
six
before
for
that, 6 for
80.
80.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, 2 really good games in a row. I mean, I think Max is another one of those guys. You're playing him every week if you have him.
We
But
were just wondering like how Cole Beasley stepping into his role while he was out would have affected his
right.
return, and I think I'm past that now.
Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, I mean Kelsey and Andrews have been good. Andrews had like 1 monster game, so his numbers are a little inflated, but he's still well ahead of anybody else behind him. Like his average isn't going to indicate, it's a little high for what you might be expecting because he had a 36-point game week 5, but he's been very good and he's well ahead of anybody else behind him. Being drafted as like tight end 5 or 6.
Right.
That's that value you look for.
Really is. So why it's so hard for me to draft tight ends, man? I know some of the there's a couple guys that are gonna be ahead of the rest, but outside of the most obvious and the Travis Kelce's of the world, it's really difficult to predict. You could have said Mark Andrews, but it really wasn't that obvious because last year Mark Andrews had a pretty disappointing year. It was 2 years ago when he had kind of like his quote breakout season where everybody became aware of him. And then the next year he was a highly drafted tight end and really didn't live up to that expectation all the way up until the end of the season. Last year he had a few nice games he put together, but most of his year sucked. And then you have like all those tight ends, the Hawkinsons and all these guys that get drafted in those, like rounds, I don't know, 4 through 7. There's some really valuable receivers and running backs in that group that you pass on to take one of those guys. And it seems like most years, most of them don't pan out. like someone else steps up instead that you didn't see coming.
Yeah, it's kind of the beauty of fantasy is there's a revolving door. So like it's been a little bit unique with like Mahomes and Kelsey because usually when you're picking guys as the top guy, you're taking that guarantee that they're going to be like top 3 or top 5. And these two guys have been top. They're the top at their position for a few years now, so it's a little unique in that way. But usually, the way it's traditionally been is like the number one guy is the guy that's like just short of guaranteed to be like a top 5 guy, and then you kind of get into a mix where it's like your top 10, like half of them are guys that you're not surprised about, but like a good third or half of them are guys that you're like, wow, didn't really see
Yeah.
that coming, or I understand how it happened, but I wouldn't have invested in that like before the season started.
Little update. I didn't play Jalen Waddle. He's already had a 25-yarder. First drive of the game. Okay. On the bench. All right.
Cam just targeted DJ Moore. We good. We good.
Did he?
Yeah.
Mixon's got 55 yards. Okay. We out here. Let's keep that rolling. He's already got 7 carries.
Somebody else that we should be talking about for pickups. They already played this week, so like we can't just go grab them. Matt Breida seems like he's becoming a fantasy relevant piece. Out of
He is.
all of the like distrust we've had in the Bills backfield with Moss and Singletary, who we both think offer enough to be relevant, it's just been more about usage. Like they go in and they add Matt Breida, who was with what Miami the last couple years,
Niners.
the Niners. I think he was with the
Mhm.
Miami last year.
Did he go to Miami after?
I think so. So maybe
You're
it
right.
was just 1 year then, and but then he shows up here with the Bills in a situation that we couldn't be less interested in, and he's scoring. Like he's putting up fantasy points.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
you might be right. Maybe Breida did spend a season in Miami.
James, you might have just made a new best friend.
Yeah, man. I've been a Mixon supporter for years now. I mean, personal choices previous, years ago. I mean, hey, I don't know anything about any of that Mixon stuff. But him as a professional football player, running back, been a big supporter for a while. Um, I think he's been in a situation that's been really unfortunate for him and probably for his career because, like, he can't get those years back. And those are the most important years for running back when you're younger like that. He's also had his problems with injuries too, but he's been able to stay healthy for most of the season, man. He's with Joe Burrow, the offense is just a better